Hey, welcome back to the channel. This is a new video based on the Capacitor SQLite plugin. I did a sizable video on this with using Ionic framework and Vue.js, and I just wanted to do one showing React and how to integrate this Capacity Community SQLite plugin with Ionic and React to run in the web and to run in iOS and to run in Android. This video will be much faster than the other one. I'm not going to go into the level of detail that I went into on how to get the whole thing set up. If you're interested in that, you can check out this video. The link will be below. It's the Vue one. If you watch the first half of the Vue one, it'll go through a lot more detail about how you need to set up the plugin to get it to work. It's basic JavaScript stuff. It's not Vue specific, and then you can hop over to the React video. And so here I am in the React. This is the React application. Like I said, I've already built the application. I will provide the source code below. So the video is just like a companion to walk through the source code. Okay, so please make sure you like and subscribe, and let's get to it. So as I said, I think the plugin is pretty awesome. I just think that the way, and this is just my opinion, the way the documentation is laid out, it makes it kind of hard to follow it. I also think that the sample applications that I looked at, they use the hook. So they've written some React hooks to kind of make this work. They did the same thing with Vue.js. And for me, I like to kind of understand what's happening behind the curtain before I start, abstracting it away. So in this video, I'm using just the plain API calls, and then I kind of create my own kind of abstraction on top of it. So at least I understand what's going on underneath it. So the first thing that I would say is, I did not follow these installation instructions. The way that I installed the plugin was I use the Ionic Visual Studio Code plugin, and down here under plugins, you can click this button, and up here it allows you to search for it. And this is the approach that I used. I searched for the plugin, and it looks like there's an update to it, and I just clicked here to install it. I did not go through all of this stuff. And also the same way how I deployed my app, I once again used the plugin. I strongly encourage you to download and use this Ionic Visual Studio Code plugin. It will make your life way easier. I saw the recent JavaScript survey. It said 75% of developers are already using Visual Studio Code. I strongly encourage you to give it a try if you're going to be doing a lot of Ionic development. So the other important thing to remember during the installation is, after you actually install the plugin and get everything done, I did not do any of this. Maybe you need it when you're doing some more detailed integration with SQLite plugin. I did not do any of this. If we take a look at my where's my capacitor? Let's take a look at my capacitor config. This is my capacitor config. Like I said, and this code will run on iOS and will run on Android. The other thing that's important to talk about here is that since I need this to work on my website, i.e. I need it to work in a website and the browser along with the devices, you need to make sure that you copy the SQL WASM, I don't know if I'm saying it right, file from node modules into your public assets. If you do not do this, it will not work. So as you can see, if I look at my public assets, I have my SQL WASM file. This directory will be created after you install the plugins, and you can just go inside it and copy the files out of it. I did not run into this error with Android. Everything worked fine, and I was on the appropriate Android version. I did not do Electron, and as you can see here, there were no quirks on iOS. So just kind of in a summary, install the plugin, look in the node module SQL.js dist SQL WASM, and copy the SQL WASM file as I've done here into your assets directory. that is what I've done to get this thing set up. Okay, so the next step, so we have our configuration and we've copied our files over appropriately. So the next step is to get it to work in the web, and I'll kind of put some timestamps in. So if you don't want to make it work in the web, you can skip this whole section. The importance I found of it working in the web is it allowed me to continue to work on my application in the browser, which to me gives me a much quicker development cycle than kind of deploying to device and testing on device. Even with live reload, I just find the longer I can stay in the browser, the more effective I can be in, actually probably efficient is probably a better word to use. The more efficient I can be when developing the app. So that is why I wanted to get web working. So to get web working, let's take a look. If we go into our main TS, the important part is to get the Jeep SQLite element installed in your DOM. And so what I've done here is I've kind of stripped this down to the minimal amount of code that you need to get it installed, and it's packaged all up inside of here under the comment of web-specific functionality. And when you are using the web platform, we get our SQLite connection, we get our custom element defined, and then we insert the the Jeep SQLite information into our DOM. We initialize the web store, and we're good to go. Data is there, everything is fine. You can see this is the application running in the browser. I can add items, new item in video. I can add items. You can see when I refresh the page, my items are still there in the video. I can edit the items. Edit, update. My items get updated and refresh. Everything is working fine in the browser. We're all good. Once again, code will be included. You can go through this yourself. Maybe even use this as the template to get your initial project set up. All right. So that's the magic to get it working inside of the web browser. And so that's the change you need to make the main TS. I'm going to try to go file by file to help you understand how to get this going. So that's main TS. If I look at app TS here, no major changes here. Pretty straightforward, your basic Ionic React app, single page app, get it started. So now we've gone through our app, we've gone through our main, and so now we're on our home TS. So there's a bunch of stuff going on here because I did actually do some refactoring. I'll kind of explain to you what I did. The bulk of it is in this use SQLite DB hook that I created. As I said, I created the hook myself after I understand the basics, and I wrote the hook the way I wanted it to be so that I could understand what's going on inside of there. So let's take a look at that hook since it is kind of critical to everything that's happening. So what I'm doing inside of this hook is I'm initializing my database connection, I'm initializing my SQLite connection, and then I have this Boolean state that keeps track of whether or not things are initialized or not. Because basically I don't want the app to start doing its thing until I've actually initialized SQLite. So, excuse me, in my use effect here, I want to initialize the database, and then I also have this function which I'll walk through to initialize a table. So it basically sets up the default tables that I need for my database, and then once all that's done, I set initialize to true. So if we go up here and we look at initialized data, we look at our function initialize database. If I have no SQLite, I bail, and then I create my connection. I check the consistency of connection. I get my connection. If everything's good, then I retrieve the current connection. If everything isn't, then I create a brand new connection. This code comes from the default example that is provided inside of this plugin over here. You can search for itself. I'll include a link below to exactly where the code is. So like I said, I want to try to keep this video short. So we've now initialized the database and we have a connection, and what I've done is I'm basically saving my connection in this state variable. Then we have our initialize tables function. So let's go down and see where our initialize tables function is. So here's our initialize tables function. And so what I did was there was a bunch of boilerplate code that is needed when you execute queries in the database. So what I do is I open up my connection, I execute everything, I close my connection. And so what I found was throughout my code, there was a bunch of open connection, check connection, execute, close connection. And so I've wrapped it inside of this perform SQL action function. And so let's take a look at this. So my perform SQL action, it has an action function that gets passed in the database connection, and then it has a cleanup function, which is optional. So basically it's like I will open up this code will open up the database connection, set up everything for you, execute it, and close the database. But if there's other cleanup functions, other cleanup actions that you want done after the SQL action is done, you provide it as a function as part of cleanup. And so if you look in here, like I said, I open up the database connection here, I perform the action and pass in the connection, I display any error if any error happens, and then I close. If I have a current database and it's open, then I'll close it, and then any cleanup action that you want, you can execute. The important thing to remember is that I have closed the data, well, the way I've written this, the database is closed before the cleanup. You might want to modify this and do some cleanup that still requires a database, maybe pass in a database connection into cleanup so that you can use that to clean up and then close the databases. So that's just your preference. But like I said, this is how I implemented it. So now if you go down in here into initialize table, for perform SQL action, I get passed on my database connection. I just want to create the basic table. If it's not there, I create the table, I execute it, and then I do some cleanup. And then since it's wrapped inside a perform SQL action, like I said, it will open up the database. It will set up basically open up the database for me. It'll allow me to execute my function, display the error, and do some cleanup. So once again, the perform SQL action abstracts away a bunch of boilerplate code. So all you need to focus on is what action do I want to perform and what cleanup do I want to do after that. So that's what we have inside of our use SQLite database. And then I think it also exposes kind of this initialize flag so you can make sure that you know everything's initialized before you start performing your action. And then the main thing really is perform SQL action. So that is use SQLite database. Let's see what else we have going on inside of here. So I went to use SQLite database. I just created this composable for confirmation because I was doing it at a bunch of different places. And basically all it does is it just wraps for you to use this hook as a way to, let's see, what am I returning? I'm returning a code, I'm returning a function to show the component, and then I'm actually returning the component that you need to put inside of your page. So let's go to home and we can see how that's being used. If we look at our template, scroll down to my template. You see here at the bottom of my template, I have my confirmation alert. That's basically the JSX code that's required to actually render a confirmation alert. And then through where's my use hook? And then you can see here I have this use confirmation alert. So this is the code to render it, and this is kind of, you call this to get it to display the confirmation dialog. And then everything else is wrapped inside of here. So it's kind of a separation of concerns thing I got going on here. Okay, so now let's walk through the home page and see what's kind of going on. You've already seen it kind of work with me being able to add stuff, me being able to edit it. So let's just walk through the code. So here's the SQLite database hook, the one that I wrote myself. Here's the use confirmation alert that I just spoke about. So here's my use effect statement that I use to kind of check at the start of the component, and when I initialize change, I call it to load my data. Here's my load data call, and you can see how I'm using my perform SQL action function. And then here, all I want to happen in the load data is to just execute this query, which is to select data, and then I set the items with the result. As you can see, for me, this is a lot cleaner because I don't have any of that SQLite set up any of that SQLite setup and teardown code here inside of my home page. So it's pretty straightforward. Perform a SQL action. What is the action I want to perform? As you can see here, I'm not passing any cleanup, so nothing's being done. I set the, that's really annoying. I set the value that came back from the query to set items. And then if we scroll down to the bottom, we can see that, where's my list being rendered? Here's my items map where I'm just rendering it. I use the key here on the item so I don't get any of the errors. I have wrapped the text, which is the data. It's funny that I call it name, but it's basically the data that comes back from the SQLite query. So that's what this field is right here. And then I have my two buttons to edit an item and then the delete an item. I first call confirm delete, and then I actually delete the item if it's confirmed. So that's kind of how the list is being rendered. And so let's kind of just walk through the functions. Where are they? So obviously let's do the insert item function. So here's the add item. And once again, you can see I have it wrapped in my perform SQL action. I want to just add an item. This is the basic SQLite query. I'm just using the time for my unique identifier, and then I'm passing in my name to the query. Then after the query runs, and if it is successful, then oh yeah, because I don't have any sort of listener or anything happen. So all I'm doing is after I add the item, I'm executing my query again and then setting it so that the new item appears. New item add. So it inserts it, then it runs the query to update the list. And then the last thing here, this is my cleanup function being executed. And all the cleanup function does is it clears out this input field at the top. So that's an example of using the action function and the cleanup function. So that's what I do for adding an item. All right, the next thing is, this is my confirm delete. Well, I'll cover that when I cover the delete item. So we've added an item. If I want to edit an item, so what happens is I've added, let's scroll down here, I've added this edit button, do edit, and I pass it in the item that needs to be edited. And if I find, let's see, do edit item, I take the item that I was passed in, I set I set edit item to that item, and I set the input name to the name. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the name. So here, if I edit this, click edit, I'm taking the name and I'm setting it to this value. So that's how we get the name up there. But then I'm also letting the overall system know which object I'm editing, and that's what set edit item does. And then once the user clicks update, well, first of all, I modify the UI a bit. So if I have an edit item, then I kind of change the UI. So you can see here, there's a different set of buttons. So we got the cancel button and we have the update button here. So basically now I've added the information that I want into this kind of edit mode. And so the values that I'm entering, so new item that I am editing, get set. So now my input name now has the new value. And then when you click update item, where are we? Add item, update item. We have our SQL query. And then what we do is, since I set the edit item, I know what the ID is of the item. I have the new value from the input field up there, and then I just execute the query. We run the query again to load the data. Then once again in our cleanup, we clear the input field, and then we clear the set edit item field. And by clearing that set edit item field, it puts us back into the regular input mode. And so you can see now the buttons have changed and we just have the add button. So that is the edit item. And then the last one is the delete item. So there's two stages to delete. First, I want you to confirm it, which will use the confirm hook that I created. And then if you do confirm it, that's what this is the success function of the confirm, then I want to execute my delete item, which is down here. And with delete item, you're just getting past the ID. So now I can once again use my perform SQL action. I can execute a delete utilizing the ID that was passed into me. And then once again, I can run the query again to clean the UI. So if I do the delete, here's my confirmation dialog. I can cancel it and nothing happens. If I delete and I confirm, then it actually deletes the item, runs the query to get the new data, and then runs my cleanup function. So that's basically what I have here. Like I said, I'll provide all the source code for this, but the real magic is you want to make sure it runs on the other environments. So let's take a second here. Once again, I'm using the Visual Studio Code plugin, and here you can see this guy only has Android added to it yet. So let's see if we can get Android to run. Like I said, I usually have to start the emulator myself. It's probably a configuration issue on my machine. Maybe we'll get lucky this time. But let's give this a run. All right, so you can see here we have our application running. Let's kind of clean this up a bit so we can confirm our delete, confirm our delete, confirm our delete. So we know our delete's working. Let's add some new items. Running on Android. The items are getting added, edit, running on Android, and I can edit. So probably want to wrap that, but you can see that the same code is running on Android. And now let's see if we could quickly get iOS going here. Let's switch back to my app, and I'm going to need to add iOS to project. iOS is added to the project, and then now we should be able to quickly just run this. And we'll pick on my favorite. Okay, now we have our iOS running on iOS, add, and again, add, and let's edit, and again, it is edited, update, and then now let's delete it. So that's what you got. Once again, like I said, this was just to walk through the source code. Hopefully you find this video helpful. Please share with others. Check out the source code in the link below. Use the video as kind of like a reference to walk through it. I'll try to put a blog post together quickly also to kind of help those who just like to read text. But please make sure you like and subscribe. Come back again and leave some comments and other things you'd like to see. All right, thanks. Take care. Bye.